At the age of 15, I made the decision to jump off my board into the ocean head first. And unfortunately, that split-second decision changed my life forever. I ended up hitting the bottom of the ocean, broke my neck, and ended up with paralysis in about 80 to 85% of my body. And everything changed. My life changed, my family's life changed, and the outlook on what was what I thought a very promising, very fun life ahead of me completely changed. I was a very young 15-year-old with great aspirations. I was going to school, I was active, I played sports, I loved skateboarding, I loved basketball, baseball, I love all sorts of sports. I had my bike, I played the guitar, I played the drums, I was super active. And I was, I wouldn't say popular in school, but I had a bunch of friends and a bunch of activities at that time. However, surfing became my passion. Surfing became the love of my life. Eventually, I started boogie boarding, then I started surfing, and I just became completely enamored with the ocean. So I stopped all my other sports. I stopped doing everything that I was doing in terms of extracurricular activities and focused exclusively on surfing. I would surf in the morning, I would surf in the evening. Everything was surfing except going to school. Going to school obviously was a priority. My parents were always on me about school, but surfing was my thing. One day I went surfing like every other day in the morning with one of my friends and a bunch of other surfers, and we went out like every other day right in the morning around 6-7 a.m. and ended up surfing for a few hours. It was a beautiful day, sunny. The waves weren't huge, but they were, you know, a little bit powerful, and it was about 14 of us out there surfing, and we had a great session. As always, I was always the first one in the water and the last one in the water. And my friend Pablo and I were the last ones in the water. Everybody was leaving, and we decided to ride one last wave before we went home. Pablo and I paddled, grabbed that last wave, and something happened in the process of catching that wave and getting to shore. Pablo made it to shore. I didn't make it ashore. I decided to dive off my board into the water head first, broke my neck, ended up with a spinal cord injury, and unfortunately I ended up face down in the water, not being able to move. Obviously, it was like somebody flipped the switch and everything went dark. I don't remember what happened. I don't remember anything of that day. I have vague memories, but I was fortunate enough that Pablo was there, and he was able to pull me out of the water, call for help, and eventually that's where my second opportunity at life started. They took me to the hospital, they took me to the Red Cross. I was living down in Mexico, close to the border, and eventually I was transported via helicopter to a hospital in San Diego, California, where I started, you know, my second opportunity at life. Obviously, it was a huge shock not only for me, but for my family. I ended up with obviously paralysis in a huge part of my body, but it was a huge event for my family, and not in a positive way. It was emotionally hard. It was financially hard. There were so many things that happened. Even my community around me, my friends, family, people at school, everything changed. Everybody was hurt. And eventually, fortunately, after a few weeks, I started getting back my consciousness and just understanding what was going on. And immediately I started realizing, right, that it wasn't going to be an easy recovery. Nobody ever told me right away that I was not going to be able to walk. Nobody ever told me right away that I had paralysis and that was not going to be a thing that I was going to recover, right? The movement and the sensation. I started understanding little by little. And the first few weeks were probably the hardest moments of my life. This journey has been difficult, right? But those first few weeks, probably the first month and a half, were probably the most difficult moments in my life. I remember just spending time at night, not being able to think about anything other than just worry about what my life was going to be like after the injury. I didn't know if I was going to get back home. I didn't know if I was going to be able to surf again, to play basketball, to go to school again. What was my life going to be like after this injury? Because I couldn't just move, right? I felt like the weight of the world was on top of my body and I couldn't move physically, but also emotionally I felt that way, but I couldn't really express that during the day because my family was there. So I would hide it, and at night I would just spend nights crying and awake at 3 a.m. in the morning in the hospital by myself, just crying my brains out, just trying to figure out. There were some moments, I can tell you, where I wanted to take my life. I wanted to end it. I wanted everything to be done. There were two things that would hold me back. The first one was that I couldn't do it. There was no way for me to end my life. That's how powerless I was at that point. And that's how powerless you are after a spinal cord injury. You have no control over your life. You lose everything at that moment. The second thing was that I was motivated because I knew that if I were to die, if I were to take my own life or anything, my family was going to be completely destroyed. So I kept going. And one day I was laying in bed talking to my dad, trying to figure out things, right? And I asked him a question. I asked him, why me? And he stood there and was quiet for a couple of minutes. And then eventually he said, why not? And that was the moment that really changed things for me. Maybe not immediately, but that stuck in my head. Who am I, or who was I, right, to not be in that situation? Who was I to not have a spinal cord injury? Who was I to not be there in that moment struggling, right? I wasn't special. It was just something that happened. So after that happened, I decided to start working hard. It just started motivating me and starting, taking control of my life, at least being accountable and being responsible for my own life. And I worked really hard. And I started recovering. Obviously, the support of my family, the support of my friends was huge, and the support of my parents and just the community around me was immense. That pulled me through. I eventually got back to school and realized that the world was not made for somebody with a disability, somebody in a wheelchair, and things started getting better little by little, but it was a very, very challenging journey. It was something that I had to adapt to, and I continue to adapt to every single day of my life. And if you have a spinal cord injury or have somebody with a spinal cord injury, you know this, right? It's a journey that you have to take on. Every day is a different day, and every day you have to face challenges, and every day you have to adapt. Eventually, though, I was able to get back to quote-unquote normal life, and I was able to accomplish a lot of the goals that I had, a lot of the dreams that I had, and a lot of the things that I wanted to accomplish, all because of the faith, all because of the family, the support that I had, and the friends and community around me that rallied, and it made it possible. But after 31 years, I can say to you that it's been a crazy, crazy journey. It's difficult to look back and think about all the good moments and all the bad moments, but I know there's been some crazy, amazing moments and some very challenging moments. But in the end, everything that I've learned from a spinal cord injury, or the biggest thing that I've learned from a spinal cord injury and the ordeal and the challenges that I've gone through, is that the next day, every day, is an opportunity for living life at its fullest, because we never know when it's going to end. We never know when we're going to lose what we have. So we better live life, and you better live life to the fullest every day. Is it easy? No, right? It's not easy. Every day might come with a bigger challenge. Some days might be small challenges, but every day is going to be a struggle, and every day is going to be difficult. But if you have a positive attitude, and if you really understand that you can actually accomplish your goals and your dreams, if you really put your mind to it, if you ask for help, if you ask for support, and if you just pull through, you're going to end up being smarter, wiser, and a lot stronger in the end. If you have a spinal cord injury, or if you know somebody that has a spinal cord injury, this channel is for you. I'm Beto. I've been living with a spinal cord injury for 31 years, about to be 32 years, and I'm here to tell my story and to share all the experiences that I have so that you may have an easier road ahead with your spinal cord injury, or with somebody that has a spinal cord injury as a loved one. I hope you can subscribe. I'm going to be telling all these stories. Hopefully I will see you around, and leave me your comment or leave me your questions below, and I will happily try to answer them. This is Beto right here, and this is from my chair, and this is a new channel. I'll talk to you soon.